So today we're comparing two popular agent platforms, AI agent platforms, OpenClaw versus Hermes or Hermes. So I built a slide for you so that we can have a clear view or contrast of OpenClaw versus Hermes. The easiest way to think about them is this. OpenClaw feels more like an assistant that lives in your conversation, while Hermes feels more like an agent system that wants to grow, learn, and run more structured workflows. So this is not really a story of one being universally better than the other. It is more a story of personality fit. One says, message me anytime. And the other one says, give me a mission and I build a process. So basically, this is a joke. Basically, one is friendly operator in the group chat, and the other is overachiever who already made a spreadsheet for the group chat. And as we all know, spreadsheets are how ambition become visible. So let's go to best fit use case. For OpenClaw, it's a personal gateway assistant. It is best when your user wants to self-hosted assistant reachable through chat apps tied closely to personal workflow, devices, and local control. While Hermes is compounding agent system best when user wants an agent that learns, persists, procedural knowledge, creates reusable skills, and run in varied execution environments. So there's a signal here. Gateway-centered experience. Messaging services are the primary interaction model. The signal for Hermes, learning loop, persistent memory, skills, MCP, and multiple backends are central. So if you only remember one slide, this might be the one. OpenClaw is a strong fit when the main goal is personal assistant, right? Hermes is strong fit when the main goal is more capable long-term agent setup, something that can accumulate structure, memory, and reusable skills over time. So the practical question is not which one is smarter. It's really what kind of relationship do I want with this system? Do I want something that feels like a helpful assistant, always within reach? Or do I want something that behaves more like an evolving operational engine? OpenClaw is a text, it's saying, text me when you need me. Hermes is something, if you can imagine, it is saying, I have prepared a framework for your future. So Hermes probably alphabetizes its thoughts. That's a joke. So let's go to setup effort. Lower friction first run for OpenClaw. More configuration surface for Hermes. On setup effort, OpenClaw tends to feel more straightforward. The value proposition is easier to understand quickly. Connect the assistant, connect channels, and start interacting. Hermes usually asks for a bit more intention upfront. There are more moving parts to think about, especially if you care about backends, tools, automation, or how the agent should behave over time. Does not that mean Hermes is bad at setup? It means it towards people who are comfortable investing a bit more at the beginning for a richer system later. So if the audience is looking for the shortest path to hello world but useful, OpenClaw has the advantage. If the audience is thinking more like builders and operators, Hermes must justify the extra upfront effort. Here's the joke. OpenClaw says, let's get started. Hermes says, hey, before we begin, let's define the architecture of getting started. So I have that joke have some clarity on what uh, setup effort means for OpenClaw and Hermes. Now let's go to security posture. OpenClaw, good for trusted personal use. Hermes, depends and depth emphasis. On security posture, the big difference is tone and operating style. OpenClaw is well suited to more personal, trusted usage patterns. It makes sense when the environment is simpler and the trust model is tighter, while Hermes appears more oriented toward structured controls and layered protection, which makes it better suited for more formal or team oriented environments. The plain English version is OpenClaw feels more like something you'd trust your own lane, while Hermes feels more feels more prepared for a situation where multiple people, systems, and safeguards all matter. So OpenClaw locks the front door. Hermes install the front door, the alarm, the camera, and then asks who gave you the key. So, so Hermes may also judge your password choices emotionally. Now for security posture. That's it for security posture. So let's move on to memory model. How each system remembers, recalls, and improves. For OpenClaw, session and continuity memory. For Hermes, persistent and then self-improving memory. So this is one of the clearest differences. OpenClaw is more about continuity in sessions and conversation. It helps the assistant stay useful across interaction and remember relevant contexts, while Hermes leans more on persistence and capability growth. Its memory model is more tied to the idea that the system can accumulate useful knowledge and reusable ways of doing things over time. So, OpenClaw memory feels like it is saying, I remember what we're doing. For Hermes, for Hermes memory, it feels like it's saying, I remember what works. So that's a subtle but important difference. One is conversational continuity versus the other is operational compounding. So you can imagine, OpenClaw remembers the conversation while Hermes remembers the lesson. Given enough time, Hermes may remember your habits better than your copy shop does. Now let's move to extensibility. How easy is to extend capabilities and integrate tools? For OpenClaw, skills, plugins, ecosystem. For Hermes, it has tools, toolsets, MCP, skills. OpenClaw has a MCP too and toolsets too, but these are highlighted here. So both platforms are capable, but they emphasize different things. OpenClaw feels more ecosystem driven around the assistant experience. So it has a skills plugin and a gateway centric workflow. Hermes feels more modular in system sense. It looks better suited when you want to assemble components into a broader agent architecture. So if someone wants a package assistant that can do more things, OpenClaw is appealing. If someone wants to build a composable platform with more structured integration, Hermes has the stronger story. So OpenClaw is like adding attachment to a multi-tool, while Hermes is like opening the garage and building a machine. One day Hermes may ask for a project manager. Now moving on to team suitability. How will the platform fits team, enterprise, or shared operation? For OpenClaw, team suitability means personal first, share carefully. For Hermes, suitability for team is better, system posture. This is where the difference becomes very practical. OpenClaw is strongest when default assumption is personal use or a small trusted setup. It can be shared, but that does not seem to be the center of gravity. While Hermes is the better fit when the audience is thinking about teams, thinking about roles, governance, and repeatable operation. So if the question is what works best for one person or a small trusted workflow, so OpenClaw is compelling. If the question is what scales better into team process and organizational structure, Hermes is the safer answer. OpenClaw is great personal sidekick. Hermes is the one you invite to the meeting because it's brought a plan. It might also bring a backup plan, a wrist log, and a mild disappointment. So how about operating costs? OpenClaw, low to moderate. Hermes, the cost is moderate to variable. OpenClaw tends to be easier to picture and often easier to contain. It is more aligned with a local or relatively simple hosted model, while Hermes can offer flexibility, but flexibility can come with more complexity and potentially more costs depending on how it is deployed and what is infrastructure and what is infrastructure it uses. So in plain terms, OpenClaw may be easier to keep lean. Hermes may cost more if you take advantage of its broader execution and deployment option. This is one of those trade-offs. What power and optionality are great, but they are rarely free. So OpenClaw is more likely to say, I can live modestly, and Hermes is more likely to say, definitely modestly. So finance teams everywhere can apparently sense this slide from several floors away. Haha. How flexible is this for deployment? It is where it can run and how execution is isolated. So OpenClaw, it is local first gateway. Hermes, multiple execution backends. OpenClaw tends to be easier uh, for deployment flexibility. OpenClaw is more local first in feel. It is very attractive when you want something that runs in a direct, understandable way and stay close to your environment. Hermes is more flexible in how it can run. That makes it better matched when deployment options are part of the evaluation, not just an afterthought. So the choice depends on whether simplicity or range matter most. So if the goal is give me something stable and close at hand, this is your choice, OpenClaw. If the goal is give me choices across environments and future scenarios, so let's go for Hermes. That best fit for Hermes. OpenClaw likes a dependable home base. Hermes like a travel itinerary. So Hermes has probably already compared cloud regions for fun. Hmm. And when it comes to channel and UI experience, this is how users interact with Assistant day to day. OpenClaw, messaging first everywhere. Hermes, multi-interface power user model. OpenClaw feels deeply messaging first. It makes sense for people who want the assistant to show up naturally where they already communicate. Hermes supports multiple interface too. Yeah, it has the Telegram, it has the WhatsApp channels, but the impression is broader and more system oriented, not as singularly concentrated on the chat experience. So if the main user behavior is I want to talk to my assistant from wherever I already am, OpenClaw has a strong edge. If the main user behavior is I want to operate an agent through several modes and tools, so that's Hermes. OpenClaw wants to be where your messages are. Hermes wants to be where your workflows are. OpenClaw may secretly believe every app should just become a chat window. That's a joke. What about scheduling and automation? For OpenClaw, built-in assistant scheduler, it is already built in. For Hermes, it is structured recurring operation. Both platforms support automation, but the emphasis feels different. OpenClaw makes automation feel connected to the assistant and its channels. That is useful when the automation is part of an ongoing conversational workflow. Hermes feels stronger when automation is treated as a structured operating layer, more formal, more usable, more system-like. So OpenClaw is appealing for assistant-style reminders or triggers on scheduled actions that stay close to the user experience, while Hermes is appealing when automation starts to look more like a design process. So OpenClaw says, I'll remind you, Hermes will say, I built a recurring operational pattern. Hermes may eventually schedule time to improve its own schedule. That's a wish. And now for final recommendation. Pick OpenClaw when the problem is personal reachability. OpenClaw shines when you want accessibility, simplicity, and a very human feeling interface model. It is strong when the assistant needs to live in conversation, stay close to the user, and feel easy to activate. Its strengths are not just technical features, they are experience strengths, less friction, more immediacy, and clearer personal assistant vibe. So if the audience values approachability and channel not native interaction, OpenClaw is for you. OpenClaw has a very strong position. So OpenClaw is the one that answers when you say, can you help me with this real quick? And unlike some humans, it does not pretend it forget to see the message. How about Hermes, where Hermes shines. Pick Hermes when the problem is compounding capability. Hermes shines when the user wants more than a handy assistant. It is stronger when the system itself is expected to become organized, reusable, and capable over time. That, that makes it especially appealing for users who think in terms of process, capability, development, and long-term structure. So if the audience wants an agent platform that feels more like a foundation than a convenience layer, Hermes is the better fit. Hermes is what happens when an assistant starts taking professional development seriously. If left unsupervised, it might start using phrases like strategic initiative. So bottom line, choose OpenClaw if you want personal messaging first assistant experience with quicker approachability with strong channel presence. And choose Hermes if you want a more structured, extensible, and long-term agent that supports broader operational ambition. This is less about who wins in general and more about what kind of win you need. OpenClaw is the better choice when you want an assistant in your corner. Hermes is the better choice when you want an assistant with a 5-year plan. And if you choose both, please do not tell them about each other. I hope this recommendation help you to decide whether you want to use OpenClaw or you can use Hermes. My decision, that's my personal one. I am using OpenClaw, so but I'd like to, if I'm going to pick between the two, I will pick Hermes. But I'm using both. I hope this helps. Thank you.